Hello guys, this is part 122 of ASP.NET tutorial, ASP.NET video tutorial. In this video we will discuss about fragment caching in ASP.NET. We discussed the basics of caching in part 119 to part 121. Please watch these parts from the ASP.NET tutorial before proceeding with this video. Caching parts of a web form. Caching parts of web form is called as partial caching. Is called as partial caching or fragment caching. In a web application development, there might be scenarios where most parts of the web page changes, but a specific section of the page is static. And let's say that specific section also takes a long time to load. Then this is an ideal scenario where fragment caching can be used. For example, let's say have a web form where we are displaying company events or company news along with some other informations that frequently changes along with that information. We are also displaying, let's say, this part 10 years. Let's say this part 10 year total sales by product line. Okay. Now since this is part 10 years sales data, this is unlikely to change frequently, and moreover, obviously, if I have to compare, compute the past 10 years total sales, just imagine how much time it is going to take depending on the volume of the data that is there in the database. It could take at least a few seconds, obviously, for the query to process. Since it is taking a little time, it expects to the page load. Okay, and since this data is not bound to change, obviously this is an ideal candidate for caching. Okay, but look at the scenario on this web form. We don't want to cache everything. We only want to cache that section. Which displays this total sale. But all the other section, they have to be reprocessed every time we load the web form. So how do we cache only that portion of the web form? Using fragment caching. Okay, so how do we achieve this? How to achieve the fragment caching? There are three simple three simple steps encapsulate that specific section of the page. In our case, this This past this past 10 years total sale by product line. You know into a user control, and then we use the output cache, and then we use the output cache directive on the user control to specify the cache setting. And finally, we will drag and drop that user control on the web form. But on the web form itself, we do not specify any cache setting. Since we have specified the output cache directive on the user control, only that user control will be cached. Let's look at this in an action. Now we will be using table called TBL products. Now we will be using table called TBL products, as you can see here in our example, and this table is going to contain ID, name, product description, ID, name, product description, columns, and it also has some sample data, and it also has some sample data. It also has some sample data. So select star from TBL products. So there are 4 rows. So execute this, select star from table products, execute it. So there are 4 rows which are produced using the insert script. Here. And obviously I also have this stored procedure sp get products. And obviously I also have this stored procedure sp get products. And if you look at this stored procedure, it simply retrieves all the rows from that particular table. So let me execute this stored procedure. It simply retrieves all the rows from that particular table. Since there are only 4 rows, obviously the query completes in less than in a second. But let's then introduce some artificial query processing time, and to do that we can make use of wait for delay in SQL Server. So wait for delay, wait for delay, and we can specify time, how much time you want to block the execution of this stored procedure. In my case, let's say I want to block it for 0 hours. So 0 hours, and 0 minutes, and 5 seconds. So let's alter this stored procedure. So let's alter this stored procedure, execute it. And if we execute this stored procedure, if we execute this stored procedure, now it is going to take at least 5 seconds. Why? Because we are intentionally blocking that using this wait for delay, okay. So if I execute this now, look at it. Now look at that. As soon as 5 seconds is completed, we get the data back. So I click it. Look at here. 2 seconds, 3, 4, 5. So we get data back. Alright, now let's go ahead and invoke this stored procedure in an ASP.NET web application. Now let's go ahead and invoke this stored procedure in an ASP.NET web application. Now remember, we want to encapsulate data. We want to encapsulate data into a user control. Encapsulate data into a user control. So obviously in our ASP.NET web application project, let's go ahead and add the user control. Let's go to the Visual Studio. Let's go ahead and add the user control. So add new item. And I want to add a web user control. So where is the web user control? Go to the search box, web user control. So here it is. And I am going to call this UC products control. Let me change the name. UC products control. Because this is going to display products related information. Click add. Okay. So what are we going to do here? We are going to invoke this stored procedure. Invoke this stored procedure and display this product data onto this user control, onto this user control. And just to speed things up, I have the HTML already typed in for that user control. So go to the notepad and copy this. and paste it here. And if you look at the designer of this, and if you look at the designer of this user control, it is pretty simple and straightforward. All I have here is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 4 TRS. So there are 4 table rows. So there are 4 table rows. I have created a table with style equal to, I have created a table with style equal to, I have set border, I have set border, the table border as 1 pixel solid black. That is why you see border around the table. That is why you see the border around the table. And then in first row, we have that static, and then in the first row, we have that static text products user control. That is the heading. That is the heading. That you can see here. That you can see here. That heading you can see here. Products user control. And then I have grid view. And then I have grid view control in the next TD. In the next TR, I have grid view control. And then in third TR, and then in third TR, we are displaying server side time. We are displaying server side time. So user control server time. That is the static text. That is the static text. And we have a label. And we have a label control here. We have a label control here to display the server side time. And then simply in the last row, we have this static text user control time. And then we are using JavaScript. And then we are using JavaScript, obviously, to print the client time. Okay, so we are using the JavaScript date function to retrieve the client side, to retrieve the client side date, the date and time. And then we are using the document dot write method, obviously, to print that to the browser. All right, so that is the simple UI design. Obviously, in the page load, what we want to do, obviously in page load, what we want to do, we want to set the label 1 text to the current date time. So label 1 dot text is equal to current date time dot so date time date time dot now dot to string. So this will retrieve the current date and time, and and display that within this and display that within this label control. Okay. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to call the stored procedure, execute that, and then retrieve the result and display it within this grid view and display it within this grid view control. Obviously, to do that, we need to write a bit of edu.NET code, and we have discussed about edu.NET in the edu.NET video tutorial. And again, to speed things up, I have this edu.NET code already. Okay, so go to the notepad. There is the edu.NET code. Let me copy it. And paste it here. What happened to it? Label 1. There is a typo. What went wrong here? Maybe there is a typo here. I have written it here. What went wrong here? I think I made a mistake here. I had to do that coding not in webform 1. Move this. It should be in the code band of this UC products control.ascx file. Where is the view code? Okay, right, it is already there. So let me now what we have to do, we want to call the stored procedure, execute that, and then retrieve the result and display it within this grid view control. Obviously, to do that, we need to write a bit of edu.NET code, and we have discussed about edu.NET code in the edu.NET video tutorial. And again, to speed things up, I have this edu.NET code already here. So copy it and go back to here and paste it here. Okay. You may get some compilation error in the page load. Why? Because we need to import system.configuration, system.data, and system.data.SQL client namespaces. Okay. So connection string. So connection string, I am going to create, the connection string. Obviously, the configuration manager, SQL connection, these are present in their own namespace. So we need to import some namespaces here. I have already imported here, as you can see here. System.data, system.configuration, system.data.SQL client. That should get rid of all the compilation errors there. So we are reading connection string. From the web.config file. We are reading the connection string from the web.config file. So let's quickly check if web.config file. So let's quickly check in web.config file if we have the connection string there. So connection string, here it is db connection string. So let me copy the name of that connection string and paste it here. I have already pasted it here, as you can see here, db connection string. So we are reading that connection string into this variable. We are reading this connection string into this variable, and using that variable we are creating the SQL connection, and using that variable we are creating the SQL connection object SQL.adapter, and we are calling the stored procedures, sp get products. This is the stored procedure. Sp get products. And we are specifying, the command type, and we are specifying, the command type is stored procedure. Command type is stored procedure, and creating a data set, filling the data set with, the data from the stored procedure. Filling the data set with, the data from the stored procedure. And finally setting the data set as the data source. Finally set the data set as the data source for the grid view, control, and call the data bind method. Pretty simple and straightforward. Okay, so now look at this. We did not specify. So now look at this. We did not specify any cache setting here. On the user control at the moment. Okay, so let's go ahead and specify the cache setting. How do we specify cache setting? Using the output cache directive. So I can go ahead and use the output cache directive there, and the output cache directive output cache directive here, and the output cache directive has two parameters, has got two mandatory attribute, and the output cache directive has got two mandatory attributes. One is the duration, so let's say I want to cache this web form maybe 30 seconds. And the another one is vary by param attribute, vary by param vary by param attribute. So for now I am going to set vary by param to none. Okay, so we specified the output cache setting on the user control. All that is left out is use this user control on a web form, because since we have specified the cache setting there, here, this web form, I mean this user control is going to be cached. All right, so let's flip to the web form. Now let's say on this web form I want to use that user control. So now let's flip to the web form. Let's say on this web form I want to use that user control. So let's save everything. So let's save everything. Let's drag and drop that user control on the web form. So let's drag this user control on this web form. Here you can see we are being showing extra part. So what we need to do to remove the extra part, from where to where? So we need to remove this extra part. Okay, and now from here you need to remove this part also. Fine. Okay. So go to the design part. See the design part now of the web form. So we have the user control there. Okay. So the registered directive is added. So registered directive is added now on this web form. Where is the registered directive? There is the registered directive. This is the registered directive. And then we have the user control there. And then we have the user control there. Now let me design this web form. So now let me design this web form. I have the HTML here. So on the web form, let's copy and paste this HTML. Okay. So go to the web form notepad and copy this HTML. Yeah, this one. Copy this HTML. So on copy this HTML. So on the web form, let's copy and paste this HTML. Okay. So again, if you look at this, copy this and paste it here. So again, look at so again, if you look at this is a pretty simple design. All we are doing here is a table. There is a table, and within the table we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 TRs. 1, 2, 3, and 4 TRs. Okay. In the first TR, what we are doing? In the first TR, what we are doing? We have this static text. We have this static text page content that changes. So basically, if you look at this web form, let's say we might have some data that frequently changes here. Please go to the design part. Let's say we might have some data that frequently changes here, at all this location, and this is the user control, which we dragged and dropped on the web form, on the web form. On the web form. So if you look at this last TR, if you look at this last TR, so if you look at this last TR, I have the user control. Okay, and in the and in the TR above the user control, we are printing the page client time. We are printing the page client time, the client time on the web form. Okay, so that is using the JavaScript and document.write method, and then page server time, and then page server time, that is the static text, there, and we have a label control, on this web form to display the page time, the web form server time. And similarly, this is the static text, and similarly this is the static text on the page on the top row, on the page on the top row. Okay, so simple waveform design. So obviously the one last thing that we have to do on this waveform is we have a label control where we want to display the current date and time. So let's go ahead and display that using date and time. So again, now we will label one. Okay, so that is waveform 1.axpx. So let's run this. So let's go ahead and display that using date and time dot now, and let's convert that to string. All right, so let's browse this waveform. So that waveform dot axpx. So let's run this, compile, build solution, build succeeded. Let's run this. Remember, the first time this waveform loads, it is going to take at least 5 seconds. Why? Because we have introduced the artificial latency. I mean query processing time in the stored procedure using wait for delay. Okay, means if you look at here, we have used this wait for delay. Okay, so when the waveform loads up, notice the time, page server time 1:10:34, and the client time is 1:10:39, 1:10:34, 1:10:39. And notice the user control server time, 1:10:34, 1:10:34, and 1:10:39. That is because the query processing took that 6 to 7 seconds, and that is why the difference between the and that is why this difference between the server side time and client time between the user control and the waveform. But now, since this is going to be cached for next 30 seconds, look at this. When I refresh, pay attention to user control server time. It is cached 1:10:34, 1:10:34. If I refresh it, okay, that time is not going to change, but the rest of all date and time will change. So let's see that. Look at this. For some reason, it is still processing that maybe that 30 seconds is elapsed. But now let's quickly refresh. See the time 1:12:37 and 1:12:37. If I refresh it, you will see no change here. 1:12:37 it will be remain. Little time has passed. 1 second. Okay, once again I need to refresh it. 1:13:25. Once again I refresh it. Again it is showing changed 1:13:11. If I change it, refresh it, this all are changing. But this server control time is not changing. It keep remain the same. Look at it, the client side time the page server time and the page client time and the user control time all keep changing. But the user server control time does not change. Means if I again refresh it, see the 30 second has passed. So if I refresh it again, this time will also change. So it is the new user control server time. This will remain same now and everything will be changed. So let see 11432. It will be remain unchanged. So I refresh it. Look at that 11432. While this is 11453, 140. If I again refresh it, look at that. Look this 11432. It will be remain same while all these three will be changed. Okay, I refresh it. 11432. See 11432 remains changed and is not changed. Okay, 30 second has passed. Again, if I refresh it, okay, I refresh it again. See, all these three are changing now. If I refresh it again, this 11510 will not be changed, while this 11527 will change. Look at this. All these three are changing, but it is not going to change till 30 second. Look at this. Okay, 30 second has passed. Okay, if I again refresh it, you will see this will not change. 11546, 15646, and this will change. These three will be changed. Look at that. I refresh it. Look at that. This is changed. This is again I refresh it. Okay. So this time is going to change. So this time is going to change when 30 second elapses. This time is going to change when 30 second elapses. Currently at the moment the time is 1:15:46. When this becomes, when this becomes, so look at that, 30 second is over. It is now processing. It is taking 5 seconds. Look at the time. Look at the time. 1:17 and 12. And 1:17 and 12. And if I refresh it again, 1:17 12. But here you will see the changes. Again refresh it. All these three are keep changing, while this remains the same, 1:17 12. And now if I refresh, I have refreshed this, all the time change, but the user control server time does not change because that code is not reprocessed. Okay. But so now let's discuss about the shared attribute of the output cache directive. But now discuss about the shared attribute of the output cache directive. Now look at this. On this web form, we are using this user control. On this, now look at this. On this web form, we are using this user control. Okay. It is possible that I can use this user control on many different web forms. So as well, let's say for example, in my web application, I have 10 to 15 web form. waveforms, and on all these waveforms I am using this user control. Now by default, what happens if ASP.NET cache a separate response for each waveform that uses a cached user control. So so obviously, if I have 10 waveforms and on all 10 waveforms I am using this product I am using this product control user control, then there are going to be 10 responses for this user control, you know, stored in the cache, one for each waveform. Now, since all the pages are displaying the same data, there is no point in caching 10 responses. I want a single cache response to be shared by all the waveforms. So, how do I do that? All you need to do is set cache control, cache attribute, I mean shared attribute to true. That's it. What is the significance of this attribute? Shared attribute can be used with output cache directive to cache a single response from a user control for use on multiple waveforms. Okay, for multiple waveform. Okay, now the shared attribute is available for the output cache directive only when it is used on the user control. When we try to set, the shared attribute, when I use this output cache directive on the web form, look at that. When I select the output cache, means here output cache. If I try to select shared, if I try to select shared, look at that. IntelliSense does not show that as, so it is not applicable when the output cache directive is used on this waveform. It is only applicable when the output cache directive is used on a user control. So here I can set the shared attribute to true. So here I can use the so here I can set the shared attribute to true. Now let's not set the shared attribute to true. Let me actually copy this entire HTML. Let me copy this entire HTML and go to the web form 2. Let's paste it there. So copy this and add a web form 2. Where is the web form 2? Where is the web form? and paste it here. Paste it here. And then in the code behind file, obviously we want to set the label text. So go to the code behind file and set the label text. Set the label text. So label one dot text is equal to date time dot now date to string. All right. And obviously we need to have registered directive for the user control on web form 2 as well. Let's copy that on web form 2 and paste that on web form 2. Let's copy that. And paste on web form 2. Where is the web form 2? It is here. Web form 2. Okay. Now let's okay. Now let's go ahead and access webform1.axpx. Webform.axpx. So obviously this will take 5 seconds to load, and then let me copy that URL. As soon as that web form loads up, means so save the changes. So now let's go ahead and access webform1.axpx. So go to the, let me first close this. Here is the webform 1. Here it is. And access this. Let me compile this first. Build succeeded. Build started. Build succeeded. Run this. So obviously this will take 5 seconds to load, and then let me copy that URL. As soon as that web form loads, we will try to navigate to webform2.axpx and see how long is that going to take. Okay, look at that. That is loaded. Now if I press enter, it is going to refresh quickly because there is a cache response. It is going to refresh quickly because there is a cache response. Now let's try to navigate to waveform2.axpx and look at this. This is going to take additional 5 seconds. For some reason we don't have the user control there. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and see there is user control on waveform 2. Where is the waveform 2? No. So we don't have that user control. We don't have that user control. So let's copy the HTML from waveform 1. So copy the HTML from waveform 1. There is no div also. We need to specify the div also here. Div. So copy that and paste it. Waveform 2. Where is the waveform 2? Paste it here. Okay. Save it. Let's paste that there. Okay, now the cache for waveform 1 might have already been expired. So let's run waveform 1 again. So close this. Close all this and go to waveform 1. Design part. Once again, compile it. Build succeeded. Press Ctrl F5. That should load up waveform.axpx. That loads up waveform1.axpx. It is going to take let's navigate to. It is going to take 5 seconds, and then immediately when that loads up, okay, so we have waveform1.axpx. So it is going to take 5 seconds. So Control F5. It is going to take 5 seconds, and then immediately when that loads up, okay, so we have waveform1.axpx. Let me refresh that. Look at that, only the server. Let me refresh this. Time is 1:33:44. 1:33:34, and while this is changing, these three are changing again. So 1:31 to change. Okay, that is okay. So only the server Page server side time, page client time, and user control time changes, but the user server control time, this one time does not change. Let's navigate to waveform 2. Notice that this is going to take another 5 seconds to load, but on the other hand, look at this. This waveform loads immediately. 2, and this waveform, what went wrong here? Okay, pause. Maybe I have not correctly copied and paste that here. Okay, it should not be there. Okay, okay, that is correct. So, okay, once again, close all this and run the waveform 1 page. Compile this again. Build succeeded. So it will take 5 seconds to load. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Now you see the time 136.45, 136.45. This will remain the same when I refresh that. What was it? 136.45. While these three will be changed. 136.45 remain same while this again I refresh it. Okay, that's it. Now let me copy and paste. So let's navigate to waveform 2. It will take another 5 seconds to load. But on the other hand, look at this. This waveform loads immediately. So if you look at this waveform, means waveform this user control is cached at 137.34. Is cached at 137.34, and this is cached at 137.51. Okay, so basically, if I have 10 different 137.34 and 137.51. So basically, if I have 10 different waveforms, 10 different waveform, and I use the same waveform, user control on all these 10 different waveforms, then there are going to be 10 different responses cached in the memory. But I don't want that. I want to use the same cache response on all the waveforms. I want to share that among all waveforms. To do that, all we need to do is set this shared attribute to true. So let me set the shared attribute to true here and see the behavior. So shared is equal to true. So where is shared is equal to true. So let and see the behavior. So shared is equal to true. Save that. Save that. Now let's close all these. So now let's close all these. So let's copy that URL, but I did not copy that. So let's run this. So now let's run this. Compile it first. Build succeeded. So let's run this. Obviously, when waveform 1 loads, this is going to take 5 seconds, but when we try to navigate waveform 2, it loads instantly. Look at that. It loads instantly. Okay. So we are there on waveform 1. Let me copy the URL. I have copied the URL. Let's go to waveform 2. AXPX. Look at that. It immediately loaded. We have shown that. And look at the cache date time. 2029. Look at the cache date and time. 141.6. 141.6. See here. On waveform 1, the cache time is 141.6. And waveform 2 is also 141.6. So it is using the both the waveforms, waveform 1 and waveform 2 are sharing the single cache response of that user control. All right. That's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.